Okay, and the last speaker of this session is Dr. Stephen Wheat from Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
I'm pretty close. No, we're Tulsa.
Oh, okay.
All right. So good morning. Somehow or another, I always get put up right against the break. I was at International Supercomputing about 15 years ago, and I was up against lunch, and I said, I'm between you and lunch, so I will be as brief as I can and yet cover the full material. And so I get through it, and I say, okay, any questions? Got one or two questions. And I said, okay, that's all the questions. All right, you're free to go to lunch. And the place just empties, and someone's running up to the stage. No, 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 he wasn't the last one. But Tim has confirmed I'm the last one before break. Okay, all right. So anyway, so who is this guy from Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma? So I started off we've been talking about years and so on. I started off in high performance computing 45 years ago this summer, just a few months before I got married. So 45-year anniversary this summer in both ways. All right, so I started off in seismic processing and oil and gas in the University of Houston. And then I went to Bell Labs where I did data flow computing for the Navy, developing a standard signal processor for the real world hunt for red October. And after that, I ended up at Sandia where I participated in intermediate nuclear forces treaty verification, developing distributed systems for monitoring a nuclear weapons assembly factory in the Soviet Union, which bought me 3 weeks at that factory. And then transitioned from that to massively parallel processing operating systems design, which led to an operating system that Cray Computing actually adopted and took forward from that. And also during that same research at Sandia in support of the nuclear weapons program, did the parallel file system, a storage solution that eventually led to the development of Luster at Livermore. And then also transitioned from that to my 20-year career at Intel, where I started off doing the finishing of the architecture for the first terascale computer, the first system ASCII read to accomplish a teraflop of sustained performance. And we think, my laptop can do that now. Well, it couldn't do that back in 1996. So $66 million and a teraflop you had. All right, so in any case, and then from that, a decision I made about that architecture, and that led to us having the first profitable quarter of our supercomputing business. It was a branded supercomputer from Intel Corporation, and it also led to the company deciding to get out of the business. So I ended up getting sheltered in the workstation group, where we ended up doing among other things, we developed the BIOS infrastructure, and my team led to what became EFI. So anyone who's familiar with EFI and had to deal with that in systems administration, we could be partially to blame for that. All right, then also in the supercomputing realm of things,
be refused lunch.
What's that?
You may be refused lunch.
Oh, yes, yes. That wouldn't be the first time. All right. Well, I might have redeemed myself in around 2006. Well, first off, 9/11 brought about quite a few changes, and that was the renovation of Intel's interest in high-performance computing. We had transitioned to an OEM perspective, and then it turned out that, well, we lost complete market share of it. We were down to like 1% market share in Intel processors and supercomputing at that particular time. And so from 2003 is when I got back involved in driving the development of that business, and ended up being general manager of the business worldwide, running a $2 billion business where we had 98% market share at the time when I left Intel in 2015. But around 2006, 2007, I also conceived and worked closely with a good colleague friend of mine, Inglam Go from SGI, and Charles Liang at Supermicro, and we developed the first half-width motherboard, which led to the twin motherboard designs that every OEM has had ever since. And then also just shortly after that, I had the privilege of working with Project Columbia, the return to flight for following the Columbia tragedy. And that took an act of Congress and a design of a new system to facilitate the ability to observe and simulate the space shuttle should another event take place, and to increase the performance of those simulations by a factor of 30 from what it was at the time the Columbia accident took place. And that was a requirement to return to flight. As a result of that, I was named one of NASA Ames's research center's 25 most influential people at NASA Ames, which was, research, advanced computing, which was quite the thing. Anyone see the movie The Martian? Okay. Well, there's a cameo in there, and you might remember seeing it, the Pleiades system, and there's this person sitting on the floor with the laptop in the middle of a row of computers, and the highlight says Pleiades. Well, Pleiades was my design, and I named it. So anyway, lots of fun along those lines. So left Intel in 2015, joined Hewlett-Packard, and finished my professional industrial career at Hewlett-Packard for 2.5 years, doing a worldwide business development for high-performance computing and solutions development, namely in bioinformatics and in manufacturing. In any case, so that's kind of a bit of who am I and what I have to say about things, and perhaps maybe there's something that I can have a little bit of meaning behind it. And how does he end up at ORU? Well, that's where my wife and I met 47 years ago, and we got married and whatnot, and we left Oklahoma and back to there for personal reasons. And I decided I was leaving the industry. I was hanging up my hat. I was retiring after 38 years. And lo and behold, what am I going to do? I end up on faculty at ORU as a professor of computer science. And I called back to my HP management team as we had parted ways amicably. I said, that lab that my team had with that cluster in there, you're not using it anymore. Well, that became the beginning of our cluster at ORU. Am I pushing the right button? This button? It usually takes me a while to get off the first slide. It's the way classes go too. There we go. All right. Okay, fair enough. Okay. So what ended up happening is that HPE did indeed donate that first system to us. It grew to 38 Broadwell nodes of 40 cores each, and 128 gigabytes of memory. And then shortly after that, a couple of years later, we end up with a donation coming out of a financial company that wants to remain anonymous, that delivered several hundred nodes to us of Sandy Bridge, relatively old technology, but still nonetheless 16 cores per node and 128 gigabytes of memory. The memory was if you will, the valuable part of it. The Broadwell is OmniPath 100, and the Sandy Bridge is good old QDR InfiniBand. It does age and so on. But later with a CC Star grant, we ended up with 9 Ice Lake GPU nodes, and 8 of those with 4 A30s, and we were just starting into our AI and machine learning side of things. And just prior to that, slightly out of order here, we also had a CC Star grant to do a regional networking. Kevin referred to that earlier. We were the 3rd edition of the regional networking computing within Oklahoma, and that took us from 9 institutions in the state on a science DMZ. It's not a science DMZ amongst the campus. 9 different campuses on the science DMZ. We added 3 more campuses to that, and it gave us 12. We've had 6 more instances of the CC Star regional networking that has grown this one friction-free network science DMZ to 28 institutions. That all of them have the data transfer nodes and the Personar nodes, and I manage that on a weekly basis. And so that has become the backbone upon which we can build as a state scale the computational resources and the collaboration that typically you would find in much larger institutions, many of which are represented here, have that kind of scale there at their institution, but we take the state to try to accomplish a fraction of that. And that infrastructure that's been provided by the CC Star grants has certainly facilitated that. As part of the GPU cluster, we also got nearly a petabyte of storage across our home and our Scratch facilitated there. And then we just brought online a raw, nearly a petabyte of S3 storage that we're going, what do we want to do with this? And the key thing is we're looking at that as being amongst our often the one friction-free network institutions, the ability to remotely deposit data that we care not to lose, but we don't have the results to back it up. Okay, so we back up /home, but we don't back up /Scratch. So we have a sort of other area of storage where we say there's some stuff we would like to, at least for as long as we can, have it replicated for disaster recovery and so on. And we got another 1.5 petabytes of cold storage that we're looking at. What do we want to do with that, and how do we bring that about? And perhaps we end up. I've been talking to Tim about how we might integrate that into the data pool. We have the ability to, we've got the power and cooling and so on to grow even more so for the small school that we are. We've got another 500 kilowatts of power right down the hall. We just have to bring it in. It's only about $600,000 to do all that and to bring that online. But our space and cooling are facilitated, and that's been great. There's a history slide that's more to this, but I will skip over that. This is a standalone for those that are going to be reading this and not attending this. Our usage. We are a campus infrastructure. Our networking was regional infrastructure on the CC Star. Our GPU compute award was a campus, but we operate as a regional center. We have several other universities in Oklahoma, as well as some outside of Oklahoma making use of it, and that's not counting all of the OSG jobs that are submitted to our cluster as well. By usage, ORU right now represents only about 39% usage of the computer. We are growing. Before this, there was no computational research at ORU. We started this in 2018, none. The best we had were a few workstations, and engineering had some things set aside for the students to use Ansys upon. And by the way, I skipped over that we're a predominantly undergraduate institution, and so that's been our focus. We're a teaching institution that aspires to do more research. Many of you have looked at solicitations from the National Science Foundation where it's calling, how are you going to grow the participation in research, especially in EPSCoR states such as Oklahoma? And we are striving to accomplish that. And I think we're living through that and being successful in doing so. Right here, you see that the OSPool glide-ins represent about 2% of our system over the last year. Well, to our obligation, that only came on our 9 GPU nodes, 9 out of 345 some odd nodes. And so we are far facilitating that, and we started this before those came online. We were part of a CC Star award for a regional area of deploying nodes that had A100 GPUs in them, and in what was called the GP Argo award. And I was a co-PI on that, and we ended up deploying one of those nodes at ORU. And then it took us a while to be able to move forward on getting the cluster integrated into the OSPool, what we were always calling OSG, and I'm always joining things when things are changing names. Okay, so OSG and OSG, and what are you talking about? It's OSPool. I'm going, anyway, so in any case, it took about 1.5 years for us to do that, mostly because the OSG at the time team was restructuring how to actually facilitate that deployment. And we finally got it online, and the experience was along, that's what I'm trying to get to all together here, is the experience of it was that be patient with us, we want to do it right. And when we finally got down to it, we spent a day deploying and we were done. And it became a fire and forget. And we went along just fine. And we would occasionally see some blips. One thing that I want to, this is the timeline I forgot to advance to. One thing that we kind of observed was that about 6 months into it, our firewalls at the university were crashing because the OSG jobs were pulling in large amounts of data. And we were still using the firewalls of the campus to feed into Titan. Even though we had a 100 gigabit bespoke external connection just for Titan, we were still, for our interactive engagement and so on, using the security infrastructure of that. And it turned out that you're causing us a problem. I'm going, what, me? I'm not doing anything. And they say, it's this node. I go, that is one of my nodes. And looking on it, that's allocated to OSG. And so what we ended up having to do was, fortunately, we had some money funds left in our CC Star Award, and we had the ability to bring on a Juniper bespoke NAT and a firewall device that we then facilitated direct connection through that and maintain multi-10 gigabit connections coming out of that to facilitate that. So for those that are looking at it, it has been a painless environment with a little bit of learning. And so one of the things that heard about a planning grant, if you're looking at doing that and so on and facilitating, what does it mean to the data and how does it affect core IT and whatnot? The rest of this is more there again for those that weren't here to hear the story overall, but it has been something that I would highly recommend anyone to not fret. The team has been great. Tim is the face of the team. I don't know anyone else. Okay. Tim has been great, and it's clear he's got a great team behind him, and I love him for it, and all of those that are involved in it, and that's great. And so we have had no second thoughts or regrets or whatever. And I tell you, when we say we want to add some more nodes, are you sure? I think so. Okay, they are the most conservative folks on the planet as far as I can tell. I am, let's make a change and see what happens. And they're going, no, that's not the way we work. Okay, and so on. So it's been a great experience, and with respect to the support, it has all worked out well. The one thing, I know he gave me, your time's up. The one thing is that we did have one little hiccup, and while our compute node that I spoke about was part of the GP Argo thing, we had made a network policy change when we made a room change of some of our equipment, and we were offline for 4 months and no one knew. Okay, I would look at the Grafana sites and yep, there's jobs. Okay, there. Yep. Turned out nothing was running, and so we got that resolved just a little bit ago. Derek, I'll shout out to him for that. He got us back online with his team. I'm sorry, I forgot her name. Well, actually, I've got it right here. Anyway, thought I did. Anyway, all right. Well, anyway, the team has been great getting that back online, and we have facilitated. Now it's monitored through NRP, and we're all back online with that particular node. I would love to have had more time to go into this in more detail, but it has been a wonderful world, and it's the second career back into high performance computing over the last 8 years. I thought I was done. I was ready to just go kind of teach people to fly or whatnot, and here we are, and it's been wonderful. And now I know I'm staying between you and break. Tim.
Any quick questions for Stephen before we go to break? You can certainly corner him during the break and oh, yep.
Yeah. One quick question. You have whatever 30-40% of the user local or whatever. Can you get some of them to leverage the OSPool?
Oh, that's all right.
That is, we don't see much OSPool usage coming from the non-R1 institution that are providing cycles to the OSPool. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we have been really focusing on facilitating traditional HPC and getting our act together. We're now at that point that we have learned, and Tim has been advocating for us to consider how to do this. With the 28 institutions, part of what we're doing across those institutions is trying to elevate the research participation there. And I'm going to be working with Tim. He doesn't know it yet, but I'm going to be working with Tim, and he'll probably redirect me to who knows who, that to be able to get trained the trainer on how can we facilitate our constituents to approach the OSPool. Okay, and across the state, not just ORU, but across the state, because that's what we're trying to accomplish is the aggregate research participation in all these undergraduate schools.